Hello students, you are welcome to UGC lecture series in educational psychology. And in continuity with the concept of intelligence, I am supposed to talk on most important and very interesting segment of intelligence concept. That is, can we test it? Can we measure it? What are the ways in which intelligence can be measured? As if you remember, I said in my first lecture that intelligence is a capacity which is not directly observable, as is weight or height. On the contrary, it can be only inferred from the behavior of an individual. A number of things went on, and people did work very hard in this direction to find out whether some instrument can be found which would give us an exact or at least approximate assessment of one's intelligence as a capability. So the mention of intelligence tests. Maybe if you believe in multiple factor theory or two-factor theory or cognitive mapping of intelligence, whatever, in that case you need different types of intelligence tests as well. So if the question is that of multiple factor theory, then numerical scaling, then understanding of one's spatial ability, you need a test that is taking care of spatial ability, giving you a score in numerical ability, in musical ability, whatever. So you will get a score for spatial factors. Or you can have a battery of tests put together, that is differential abilities test, as they call it popularly, DAT. But to this whole series of testing of intelligence, the entire original contributory credit would go to Alfred Binet, a French psychologist, basically a surgeon, who in 1904 was assigned a program by the French government to show how we could find people or identify children with some kinds of mental difficulties or mental retardation. Could he devise a test in which most educable children could be set apart from those who had some kind of handicap? He took up this challenge and started working on it. With the help and collaboration of one more scientist, Theodore Simon, and these two people put together, that is Binet and Simon, developed some skills. Earlier skills, which was first skill that was actually constructed in the year 1905, had only 30 items, and those items were placed in the difficulty, in their difficulty value. So from very simple it will go to the complex. In 1908 we had a revision of the scale, and there you will find a decisive difference in which age-wise activities were listed. So for age 3, what are the types of tasks that a person must perform before you label him as normal or you label him as having some difficulty? And the same scale again was revised in 1911, and unfortunately this is the year when Binet died. And then this was taken up in 1916. We have Sittenford revision of Binet scale, in which most important psychologists, Terman and Merrill, they were included, and who did the work of revision of Sittenford Binet scale of intelligence. And at that moment, one more thing that was added to the scaling was the concept of IQ, or intelligence quotient. one psychologist who is very popular in our psychological literature is Stern, and Stern's contribution was how you can finally find out, as you say, that a person's height is 5 foot 5 inch or his weight is 120 pounds. What is the intelligence of a person in numericals? This kind of thing was given by Stern, so that you could find out a person's score in numericals. If I say 120 degrees, IQ of a person means 120 numerically is the numerical assessment of the intelligence of a person. Now, by the time this Stern's help came there, the statistical kind of help, we had Terman Mell understanding of intellectual concept in terms of mental age and the chronological age. You see, so far as the Binet is concerned, we had seen that number of activities which are expected of a person who belongs to a particular age group. You see, take for instance age group of 6 to 9 years. The types of activities which are expected he would perform. He would be given a test on those activities. If you find that person is performing well on all those activities, you would give him average IQ of 100. That is how Binet would follow. And if you could do some activities which belong to age group 9 to 12 or age group 9 below 9, that is 6 to 9, below or above, then some of the activities you are doing which above your mental age, and some of the activities you are doing just below your mental age. If your mental age has been fixed at, say, taking 100 scores when you were 6-year-old, if you are performing better than that 6-year-old, then you will be given a mental age of, say, 7th year or 8th year child. Or if you are performing low at your 6th year of your age, low as that you could perform only tasks of a 5th year child, means then your mental age is low. Even chronologically you are 6-year-old, but your mental age is low. Your capacity to understand things is static at, or is still, or is not growing beyond age 5th. So what these people would see, that your IQ should be equal to mental age to be divided by chronological age in the first place. And that gives you an idea of what is the type of IQ one is having. But then if you multiply it by 100, that is mental age divided by chronological age, multiply it by 100, you get the IQ without fraction. This is the contribution that Stern made. Now this was talking about Binet's scale. Even now we are just starting our understanding. If we train people, we train them with this kind of scaling first, understanding that the basic primary understanding is that intelligence is a trait which is scalable. And if it is scalable, if it is measurable, naturally the phenomena must be accessible to research in terms of tasks that these people have formulated or shown or demonstrated aside. Then we have the skills like, Wechsler's skills, Wechsler's children's skills, Wechsler's adult skills. That is, in continuation of this intelligence skills, you get not only scaled properties to understand what intelligence or how much intelligence is being possessed by an individual, but you would get even ideas about not testing the person in individually as such, because in that case if I am constructing a test and I have to assess a performance of an individual with reference to his intelligence, I would administer intelligence test upon him. So it can be an individual test, but there are tests which are group tests also. So you have individual tests of measuring an individual, or you have group tests of measuring intelligence, And added to them, there are some tests which are known as performance tests of intelligence. We have individual tests of intelligence measurement, we have group tests of intelligence measurement, and we have performance tests of intelligence measurement. But in all, they give you an idea of IQ or intelligence quotient of an individual, how much numerically an individual is intelligent. So this is first segment of my lecture, which was addressed to intelligence tests. The main feature of this segment was, one, that intelligence is a trait which, even if inferred from the behavior, is accessible to research. One. Second, once it is accessible to research, it is measurable. Therefore, we found ways and techniques to measure this trait. Started with Simon Binet contribution, seeing the people whose basic capabilities are there, they exist or they are absent. Then we advanced toward Wechsler's advanced skills, both understanding of intelligence of children and those of adults. And third, we come now to one more kind of scale that was constructed by Guilford, and that scale is culture fair test of intelligence. Now, what was the assumption was perhaps different tasks while doing on intelligence tests, people get influenced by different cultural goods. Like if a test has been constructed for, say, American children are familiar with those things or objects or experiences which are available in that civilization only. So a test constructed in America, if it is administered on Indian children, then means we are starting with a limitation. And the limitation is that that test has some kind of cultural background, which perhaps our children would not be able to understand. Therefore, they will perform poorly on that test. So there was an effort made by Guilford himself that he constructed a test which you can administer anywhere with the beauty of getting real, true IQs or intelligence scores of individuals. Even taking into account some of the tests being constructed in India, if you just look at mental measurement yearbook that has been compiled, is continuously being compiled, revised by NCERT, we find how even in India certain culture fair tests or culture specific tests are constructed which help understanding of IQs or intelligence. Now this is first segment. In the second segment, I am supposed to talk about the interpretation of test score. The test score that is there, you see, there are two types of things why you find. One is an intelligence test is administered. One, that you get a raw score. If there is a test like Jalota and Tandon's in general intelligence test, you have number of items there. On number of items, you have to find out the correctness of those items, and then you will be finally scored. You get a score which is a total score but would be taken as raw score. And this raw score, as any psychological psychometrician who has constructed a test, he would give you a scale on which you can place that whole score and change it into a particular norm that is already given. And then that test would be interpreted, whether this is a very superior kind of thing, it is just superior, it is average, it is below average, it is dull, it is maroon, where you stand according to the score. That is a norm that is given in the manual of that test which has been constructed or which was administered upon anyone in the classroom or set. You should be familiar with number of tests that have been made. But then these test scores, while the interpretation of test scores is concerned, you possibly most standard way to interpret the test score is compare the test score with the norm or the interpretation given by the manual. So that is the safest one, and that puts you at the safer side. But you can interpret in your own way. Say if you have a score of 150, you would say he is very high, means as you look at it as very high or very low, who has 100 very low, but then there is a risk in taking a personal view of the test score. So test score is always to be interpreted in the way in which the test constructor has placed it. The score is in terms of numericals. Therefore, you would say if a person has 150 IQ, you would say perhaps the test interpreter has said that this 150 and above is high. High, H-I-G-H, high is a qualitative word, an adjective. Now this is to be corresponded by the behavior that has led us to high intelligence score. Therefore, once we talk of high, there is a risk that is talking in terms of numericals may sometimes not mean the same thing in terms of behaviors. Therefore, constantly it is required, and test people who construct psychometrists generally, who construct tests, they continue to revise their tests, and therefore test scores and their interpretation also changes. The third one, that is the final part of this lecture, would be concerning cross-cultural issues in testing. And this is a very important segment. Cross-cultural issues. Now, cross-cultural issues is naturally a kind of a comparative analysis or understanding of the IQ is to be conducted or to be made. Sometimes it is believed, because this kind of issue creates some confusions also. You would say, once I talk of different cultures, means I am actually assuming that there must be a cultural background behind the IQs or intelligence as such. If it is so, therefore, as I said earlier in one of my lectures, that then the Sir Cyril Burt's understanding and analysis of intelligence is to be taken as a matter of fact. That is, perhaps it's not a false kind of conception, but it must be true. I am not taking in terms of objecting to kind of theory or some interpretation, but I take it very soundly and normally in a fashion in which I would say that cultural factors which are available to influence the intelligence are to be duly taken care. Talking in terms of duly taking care means in a way controlling factors as such. Those factors which cross across different cultures as such are to be taken care once we test the intelligence of people. So a person who is acting, who is making some performance, who is solving a problem, who is resolving certain kind of issues or trajectories, whatever in life, is he doing it because there is a very learned, genuine, fairly programmed cultural background behind, or it is his own acumen, his own collective stored, deposited knowledge which helps him so? What is it? So, in order to understand this, we shall have to understand, therefore, questions connected with different cultures. I was talking just now about culture fair tests. Perhaps once Guilford thought of this kind of idea, this was the question in his mind. Could there be cross-cultural leanings? And for Guilford's test, I would talk about his test in a way that it gives you a few details about the test as such. That culture fair test that he constructed, he did it in first American background as such, but then he sought not less than 46 different cultures scores on it, so that you will have normalized norms on each such test. I would talk of Professor Kapoor here in India, who in a way normalized or localized or adapted or adopted the same test in this cultural situation, and those norms are now available. Those norms or scores were then communicated to Dr. Guilford. So where you could find, and in his final manual on the test, in that culture fair test of intelligence, he gave norms not less than 11 countries in which the same test was adopted under some localized conditions. Which means, if you are talking of intelligence test in India, then these are your norms. And if you talk of the same test in France, then these are your norms. In Germany, these are your norms. Which means that we are controlling in a way the cultural problem, the cross-cultural issues connected with intelligence. All the same, what we get finally is a pure score which represents, exhibits primarily ingenuity of the individual with a very strong or very weak background of his genetic system, his environmental system, and his time loading in all ways, in all structures, in all analysis and understandings. Therefore, certain background factors have been taken due care. This is something that we find is very normal and very usual coming through small magazines or even sometimes big magazines. Check your IQ. They give you a list of statements and ask you to show whether the statements are true or false. And they give you a tentative score also. And then that score, on the basis of that score, they would ask you if your score goes, say, above the kind of norm that they have been given, then you are having lot of intelligence. Or if it goes low, then you have less of intelligence. These are not standard strategies or testing equipments which would definitely talk of your intelligence. More so when we are talking of culture. Because if your routings are mostly and items are mostly based in the cultural understanding or the cultural background of tests, then perhaps it will not give you exact picture of your intelligence, but they will be your information tests. That can give you an information quotient. If I am asking you a number of states in India and your answer is correct, means your information is correct. Or if I ask you names of different chief ministers of various political parties in the country and you give me the names and names are correct, would I say that you are very bright person, intellectually very smart person, or what? I would say you have lot of information, but not necessarily lot of intelligence. Therefore, sometimes what we find that mentally most capable person can become information-wise most disabled. Why? Their information quotient is very low, but their IQ, intelligence quotient, is very high. Therefore, what we would like to take care of is that the things which are associated with intelligence go in a way to promote intelligence. I don't say that information is not associated with intelligence. I say that information in a particular way coming to the individual has a role to play, particularly when it is verbal in nature, particularly when it is communicative in nature. But therefore, the basic data for intelligence would come from the environment and from the heredity. And from environment, talking of environment, you have to talk of cultures. In order to make your tests most fair, dependable and reliable, then cross-cultural issues are to be taken care. They are to be taken in view. And then the problems which are associated with the questions which can be connected with these issues are to be resolved or to be answered before the test is put in the market. And these days, most of the not only educational institutions, our industrial sector, defense sector, our medical sector, everywhere you will find use of intelligence tests being propagated. Even for basic primary personal counseling services, an assistance, an idea from the intelligence test is brought. Not only that, people would say that intelligence tests have a lot of predictive validity. That if the set of data on intelligence is known about a group of persons, you can predict the another set. If you see that, like for instance, entry into a medical profession or into engineering or law, if you find that the highest cut on intelligence scores, all those people whose intelligence is up 130 degrees, they would decidedly go in medical profession. And if you have seen that data and the research has supported this idea, then you need to have only one set of data, and the other set of data would be known to you. That is predictability of a particular score. Whether you are going to perform certain things very well in a particular profession, on a particular job, or in some environment or engagement, whatever, intelligence tests would definitely predict that thing. I hope that I did some job today with you, but let me remind you and make a small summary also. This time I talked about intelligence tests, how those tests are to be interpreted, that is interpretation of test scores, and then I did talk about some cultural issues or cross-cultural issues connected with the interpretation of scores. But all the same, I feel that by now our understanding has gone to the point that intelligence as a trait is scalable, can be measured and given a numerical kind of information about people, and that is what is the contribution of intelligence tests, whether they are individual tests, whether they are group tests, whether they are performance tests, whatever, they are giving some numerical information. And all the same, intelligence being a characteristic feature of one's personality, so naturally intelligence scores would give you some idea about the person as a whole also. Thank you very much.